So once upon a time, little Nika was wandering through the forest, and the wolves, no. All of his actions were pointing me in one direction. His words were trying to detour me another way, and me being like, which way did he go? Which way did he go? 1 second it's, oh, can we do this for real? Can we be serious? Can we do this long term? Stick around. And then the next second it's like, what you talking about? I said I didn't want nothing serious. You acting crazy, girl. Like, what? This is not normal. Another thing I learned is that somebody can do and say and seem to be all of the things that you think you want and still not end up being your Prince Charming. Hey boo, this is Nika and I am pleasantly unbothered. Thank you so much for joining me for yet another video. So here on my channel, I do videos about plus size dating, self-love, self-acceptance, even plus size shopping and try-on hauls and all those good things. And today we have a chatty video that's kind of like a crossover between the dating stuff and the self-esteem stuff. You'll see what I mean. A lot of you have found these videos to be helpful and insightful, which just makes my day. And I got a lot of comments on my last video that was similar to this, saying like, oh my gosh, we must have dated the same guy because my ex was just like this, or he did the same thing, and how did you deal with it, and what did you do, and what can I do, and all that. So I decided to make another video. So the last time we talked about one of the men from my past, it was in the style of a letter to my ex video. So essentially the whole video was in the form of me speaking directly to my ex, saying what I had to say, the things that came to my mind when I thought back on that situation. Basically, I was dealing with a man who was a bit of a manipulator, a bit of a narcissist. He had a lot of ways about him, but there were good things that kept me holding on, and it was interesting. So if you're interested, you can find it right there or down in the description box below. This person we're going to talk about today is not someone that crosses my mind often or at all, really. Once in a while something might happen that causes them to just like run through my mind real quick, and it's a fleeting thought, just the way I like it, and I move on with my life, you know. I am very much over this situation. I am now in a very different point in my life. I'm a completely different person than I was then. I feel like I'm giving all these disclaimers, but I don't want to be misunderstood, basically. And I am now currently in the most happy, stable, functional, fulfilling relationship that I've ever been in my life. And I'm very pleased and very happy and very content. I am only now bringing these thoughts and these feelings to the forefront for the sake of anyone who can relate to it. So let me know if you can. And in the comment section below, if you feel me, if you hear what I'm saying, if you can relate, if you know someone similar, let me know down there. And if you like this video, do the thumbs up thing, consider subscribing, and all that stuff. Let's get to the point, right? So years ago when I was in college, I was maybe 21, 22 years old, and I was pretty much young, wild, and free and all that stuff. I was, as I am now, overweight back then, and I had a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem issues. When me and my girlfriends would go out, I remember we dressed as skimpy as possible, you know, to make sure that we got some kind of attention and weren't overshadowed by like the skinny pretty girls, you know. Even though we was cute and all, you know, we was cute and all, but there were so many body issues going on that I couldn't be confident. Anyhow, met this guy, and he was an older guy, which for whatever reason I tend to date a lot of. I don't know, hashtag daddy issues maybe, I don't know. Conversation for another time, right? And I met him at the club or through the club. We all kind of mutually met each other on the dance floor, talked outside the club afterwards on the way to the car as a group, you know, all friends, all this. A few weeks later, after, you know, like a few more visits to the club, he asked for my phone number. I give it to him. We started talking. This was a time in my life when I was not getting very much attention from men whatsoever, almost none, unless it was like pervy, creepy men, like the undesirable attention, in which case it was like, ew, no. But where's the good attention, you know? Where's the guys that really see me for me and wanna be with me? So we start texting, we start talking on the phone. This was maybe 7, 8 years ago, back when people still talked on the phone and stuff. And after the club, he would drive over to my house and we'd talk outside in his car, and it was all really cute and sweet, and you know, all the superficial getting to know you, the surface level stuff, you know. In one of our early conversations, I remember it coming out that I was the first big girl that he had ever been with. And I was in such a vulnerable place at that time that I didn't know how to feel about that. I kind of still don't know how I felt about it, you know. And it's like, in one way, it's like, should I feel honored that I'm a big girl, but I'm that cute that I got him to take the plunge, you know? Or is it like there's something wrong with big girls, which is why you haven't been with one of us? Or I was very conflicted. So let me tell you, okay, this guy, he was a smooth talker. He was a world traveler. He spoke multiple languages. He was older and he happened to be more mature. Those two don't always go together, but thankfully in this case it did. He wasn't flashy, but he took pride in his appearance. He had like a swagger about himself. I mean, let's just say I quickly became infatuated and I quickly fell in like with him, as my girlfriend would say. And I mean, he was doing all the right things and saying all the right things. You know, he openly gave compliments. Whenever we saw each other, he'd kiss my hand, which I thought was just the sweetest thing. Like, it made me melt into a puddle every time, girl. He would do the good morning text and the happy afternoon beautiful text and the hope you're having a good day text and the can't stop thinking about you text. I often wondered how genuine it was because I wasn't used to that level of attention. I wasn't used to that level of affection or compliments or whatever else. So I'm like, is he just saying this to get something out of me? I talked about this in another video as well. Kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and feeling like somebody's up to no good because of our own insecurities. And yeah, at the same time, it still felt really good to be getting all that. So it's like, on one hand, I believe it because I want it to be true. But on the other hand, I'm like, but still, could it be true? You know, like, I'm still doubting it, you know, because it's almost like it's too good to be true. This was all after the stuff that happened in my last video, about a year or so after me dealing with that guy. And so I had come out of that situationship feeling quite jaded. You know, men with the inconsistency, I did not have the time for it. So the fact that this guy was present and he showed that he cared and he seemed to care and we started spending more and more time together, all those things to me were good signs, you know, that we're going in a good direction. The only wrench in all of that is that along the way he would happen to mention that he's not looking for anything serious. And that's when things would like screech to a halt for me, until he started saying all the sweet stuff again, you know. Then he's, you know, good morning beautiful, can't stop thinking about you, can't wait to see you, can't wait to be with you, I want you to be mine. So it's like, wait a minute, so you're not looking for anything serious, but you're doing all the things that people who are serious about each other seem to do. So it was a very confusing and conflicting time for me. I don't know if it was for him. I don't know if this was intentional. I don't know if he knew what he wanted, or if, anyway. I just know that Nika was confused, girl. I was confused. So basically, the longer we spent time together, the more we got to know each other, the closer we got. And eventually, we became intimate. We spent nights together. We spent weekends together. We went places together. We planned things together. And the only thing that kept us from being something serious was the label, you know, that title that tells us and tells everybody else what we are and where this is going and how we feel, and complicates every damn thing, okay? Because at that time I would have said that that was the best relationship I'd ever been in, but the part that I would have been wrong about is the fact that it wasn't a relationship at all. Well, I guess every connection and link you have with someone is a relationship of sorts, but it wasn't a committed monogamous relationship. I did only see him during the time that we were seeing each other, but I don't know the same for him, you know. And although he said that was the case, that he was only seeing me and we were together about all the time anyway, so I don't know that there was time or space for other women. But although, hey, men be finding ways, you know, and women be finding ways too, so that doesn't say much. But whether or not I was the only woman he was dealing with, we knew that we weren't committed to each other. He just had all my time, all my attention, all my affection, all my hopes, my dreams, my future, you know, like my future plans. But no, we weren't nothing serious though, right? And it came up a few times because for me, I was yearning for a title. I wanted it. I wanted to know. I wanted a definition. I wanted to understand. I wanted boundaries and limits and parameters. You know, I need to know. I need structure to know what this is. What are we? You know, I'm with you all the time, but I don't have a definition for this. You've met my family, but when they're like, oh, are you with your boyfriend? I'm like, ha 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 ha, he's not my boyfriend, but I thought he was. Like, I want him to be, you know? And all the while, you're still doing all the things, whispering all the sweet nothings, all the things that seem like somethings, but now I know ain't nothings, you know? I remember there was this one night in particular that like haunted me for a long time. We were engaged in, I guess, some pillow talk, and my head was laying on his chest and I could hear his heartbeat. I said something about, you know, how loud or how strong or how something his heartbeat was. And he made a comment saying that his heart was so loud because it was telling me to stick around and to stay in his life, basically. And I remember being so touched by that and feeling like, oh my gosh, you know, he's in life with me too, you know, he's feeling what I'm feeling and he just don't know how to say it, and he's afraid of commitment, you know, because he's been through some things, you know. Even though he says he doesn't want anything serious, obviously his actions are showing otherwise, you know. Why else would he be so sweet? Why else would he be saying these things? Why else would we spend all the time together anyway? You know, so do I really need this label? We're practically that anyway. And it's kind of sad to me thinking back, like how easily we can convince ourselves of things that we know are not true just because we want them to be true. You know what I mean? So I feel like I slipped into this situationship unknowingly, but kind of knowingly, because all along he did say out his mouth he didn't want anything serious. He didn't want, you know, a structured, committed relationship. But then through all of his actions, it seemed to display what I thought came with that title that he didn't want. You know, it's like, what? Although there was this one time that he all of a sudden started getting all distant. So we stopped talking. He got real busy all of a sudden. He might return a text, but it would be hours later and very short, you know, a couple words and that's it. There were no good morning texts. There were no good afternoon texts. There were barely any texts. It was the, oh, sorry, I've been so busy lately. I'll catch up with you when I can. Oh yeah, I've been thinking about you, but so busy. And of course, the whole time I'm like, too busy to send a text. Like, how long does that take, right? And this was after a while of being in it. This had to be like after a year plus of being in this. And that behavior, that was the only time that I felt like there was inconsistency, but it did last for a while. It lasted for a month or two, and it really made me revert to a dark place that I was in with the previous guy, because that's what he would do. You know, he would ghost and he would not call and he would not text, and he'd leave me wondering what I did wrong. Did I mess up? Did I say something? Then there goes the obsessing and ruminating and all that. And it never worked out well for me. You know, it was mental torture. It was me tormenting myself over this guy, you know, over some guy. There was this one night in particular during this time when I actually saw him at the club, and it was the first time I'd seen him in a long time. I was super excited. I thought we'd talk and make up, but it turns out that he actually spent the entire night dancing on some other woman. Yes. And I tell you, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And at first I was so sad, and I remembered crying a lot, you know, like, it's over, the future's done, what I thought we would be, we're not gonna be. I guess I was stupid, I was an idiot. And then I got mad, like, how dare he, you know? I'm going back to the text messages on my phone, like, see right there, he said he missed me. So I'm not crazy, he said it right there. He said he wants a few, you know, he said it. And I'm going back and I'm rereading the evidence and I'm collecting all my thoughts, like, just wait till I hear from him. I'm gonna tell him, you know, he's gonna get a piece of my mind, you know? So I go from sadness to anger to denial to everything else. And finally, when I started getting to a point of acceptance, he popped back up and I was hooked again. You know, it's like, oh, I can't wait to see you. And he's saying all the right things again and doing all the right things again. And as much as I wanted to, you know, curse him out and fuss and fight and all that, I was mostly relieved that it wasn't over and that there was more to it and that it hadn't ended. And so I let myself get looped back in and get drawn back in. And again, that was my own fault. That was my own doing because I allowed it. And unfortunately, I know this is something that's been running rampant lately, because a lot of my girlfriends even tell me that the men they're seeing or have seen were bipolar in some way or the other. You know, one second it's hot, baby, I want you, I need you, I can't live without you. The next second you're at the club with a different girl when you know she's there. Like, what? Girl, like, how? Why? And it's funny to me because I've been watching Sex and the City lately, rewatching some of the episodes, and there's a episode with Carrie and Big, two of the main characters. If you've seen it, you know. And he's getting all sentimental on her, and the voiceover says, you know,
his heart was wide open and yada yada yada, and oh, there was hope for us after all.
Like something nice and flowery that way. But then by the next morning, he was a bit cold again, and things had reverted back to him being kind of distant. Then she goes, the voiceover goes,
and just like that, his heart was closed again.
And I'm like, girl, that's not normal. Like, one second it's, oh, can we do this for real? Can we do this long term? Stick around. And then the next second it's like, well, what you talking about? I said I didn't want nothing serious. You acting crazy, girl. Like, what? This is not normal. And it's interesting because I never told anybody, you guys are the first, how much I cared about him. When we were out in public at the club or something, perhaps we might dance together, we might get a drink together, but there was never any lovey-dovey public, you know, public announcement or displays among people we knew. We were very much off to our own little devices, and we pretty much always kept things private. So as I've mentioned, I've always been a private person. I've learned to keep things close to the vest, to not let people know too much of your business, and that's kind of how we kept that as well. And nobody knew, you know. So even when my heart was broken, I suffered in silence, and I cried into my pillow, and I checked my phone a million times to see if he texted or if he called, and then I cried a little more every time he didn't. You know, every time the little notification went off and it wasn't him. And after that rush of like, oh my gosh, is it him? And it wasn't. It's like, all right, back to being sad again. And then, like I said, we kind of started things back up again as if we never missed a beat. Things were good again. And ultimately, when it ended for good, it was because he moved away. And that was that, you know. Sold the car, gave up the apartment, packed his stuff, and was gone. And that was that. I didn't want him to go, but he had family issues or something or whatever. And I don't know how much of this was the truth or whatever, because like I said, my mind was not in a mature enough place at the time, I think, or in a secure enough space at the time to really be able to see through and decipher a lot of the BS that I can see through now. And so yeah, that's in a nutshell how I found myself unwittingly in a friends with benefits situation. And this was years ago, back when friends with benefits was a new emerging term for those kinds of situationships that have actions attached to something that doesn't have a label, and things get all misinterpreted and confused and people get hurt. At least I ended up getting hurt, because after a good while of doing that and playing that game, in the end, basically the joke was on me because he got all the benefits. I mean, I got some benefits too, but I ended up with a broken heart because I fell for somebody who did not have the same intentions that I had. Although all of his actions were pointing me in one direction, his words were trying to detour me another way, and me being like, which way did he go? Which way did he go? Like, girl, I can't follow. And I don't know if that's intentional. Maybe he wanted me to be confused. Maybe he himself was confused for real. I don't know. At this point, it doesn't matter. But here's what I learned from that situation. One, I learned to be very, very careful when someone's words do not match up with their actions, and they're saying one thing and they're doing another. They're saying zig, but then they're zagging. Like, I've learned to be very, very careful, if not wary, of that kind of behavior, because it has only led to no good for me, okay? In the letter to my ex, his actions said that he didn't give a damn, but all his words was, oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. And I decided to believe the one that felt best to me, and I was wrong both times. Another thing it taught me is that you cannot have a solid foundation for a relationship if you are struggling from too many of your own inner securities and inner battles with self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance, self-discovery, whatever it may be. If you got a lot of battles going on in here and then you bring somebody else into that, in my experience, no good can come of it. And it is possible, I think, to grow and mature and learn and improve while you're with someone and over the term of a relationship. But it really is ideal if that foundation of who we are, our self-love, self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem, all those things is solid in the first place. Another thing I learned is that somebody can do and say and seem to be all of the things that you think you want and still not end up being your Prince Charming or your soulmate or whatever form of the romantic happily ever after person you believe in. Also, not every situation like that is meant to last. And as unfortunate as it may seem, because again, if feelings are attached like mine were, I was not ready or willing to let that go easily. But that was not bad, you know. I clung on to something that didn't deserve it, and to someone who didn't deserve me. And while it ultimately led to a broken heart, it did lead to a lot of self-growth through the process of healing from that, and through working through all of the ins and outs of what happened and ruminating on it and obsessing about it, if I can be frank. That did all leave me in a better place than when I started, so I'm still thankful for it. But yeah, he had some family medical emergency things that he had to go tend to, and he moved away a very far ways away, and that was that. And by that point, I was all cried out. I had no other tears. There was no other crying. There were no other theatrics. I knew about it in advance. I knew the time was coming eventually. Again, I didn't want it. I wasn't happy about it, but I moved on and I survived, and I'm still here and I'm still breathing, and my little broken heart healed, and I came out of that situation more resilient, more mature, more strong than I went into it. And so there was a lot of good. There was also some bad, and it wasn't a lot of bad, but when it was bad, it was really bad, you know. I sunk to some real deep lows, and then it was good again. And so it's like, hi, like, who got the time, girl? Who got the time? And it turns out that this guy was the last guy I actually saw before going on strike, and before I stopped dating, and before the drought that lasted a few years. And I've talked about that in other videos as well, the dry spells and things. But after dealing with the situation, you know, where it's like I thought I had everything I wanted and needed, and I completely didn't, and I basically took a sabbatical from dating. I just stopped entertaining anybody. I wasn't looking anymore. I didn't care. I was done. They say when you're out there looking, you'll find all the wrong things, and I learned that the hard way multiple times. So I was done. I sat back. I was chilling. Took a few years, but my boo eventually came along, and guys like this are just a distant memory. So anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, please do the thumbs up thing. Also leave me a comment below letting me know if you know what I'm talking about. Do you know of someone who behaved in this way? Have you been through something like this? Have you heard your girlfriends talking about a guy like this? Do we know the same people or something, you know? Or is it just that many of them doing this to people? Oh my gosh. I hope not. Also, don't forget that there is that email address if you need ear to bend, as they say, or someone just to talk to, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to confide in, an open void where you can just shout something out into the world and just have it stay there and never come back and never to be seen or heard again. Let me know if there's something on your mind and you need somebody to talk to. I'm somebody, so talk to me. You know, you might as well. You might as well. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.